rolling in my 5.0. So after catching the Oxleys at 55 pounds, we had fished 48 hours in the bowl swim, and there's a 48-hour rule that states that once you fish for 48 hours in a swim, you need to move. You can stay on the same lake or you can move on to Cranwells, but you cannot take a swim for more than 48 hours. So we came for a little walk, we had a little look at Cranwells because I've not seen it before, and we had a little look round Oxleys, but there was only a couple of swims free, both of which I didn't see any fish in, and I was pretty confident, or I felt, that most of the fish in the lake, when it is a low stock, were in the bowl. So as high as I was and as happy as I was, just didn't feel that there was any point in staying. You know, we could have stayed, but it just screamed blank to me. So decided to go home after catching that fish, and I wasn't able to come the following week due to filming commitments with Corda. So it was 2 weeks later that I was able to come for our next session. On the first session, or sorry, the session where I'd caught the Oxleys, I'd arrived early in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, on a Sunday, bumped into that guy called Chris and managed to get into the swim that way. You know, that's sort of, he was leaving on a Sunday, managed to take the swim. This week, you know, all of the activity until this point had been in the bowl or in the next swim out, which they call the narrow. So all of the regular anglers were aware of where the fish were, and they were also aware that I was likely to come back on the Sunday. One of the biggest things in carp fishing, especially low stock big carp fishing, is you cannot catch what's in front of you. So getting the swim, the importance of being there, you know, it's the difference between taking part and spectating. You know, I wanted to be in that swim, so rather than arrive on the Sunday this week, I came Saturday afternoon. So there was a guy called Gary Halloway that I know from Yateley, like 20 odd years ago. He's fishing in the bowl swim. He's got one more night to go. Quick chat with him, confirmed that he was going the following day, and I've arranged it so that I can take the swim off him the following morning. So again, you know, I had the option to go and fish in an empty peg. There was a few free swims available, but I was just convinced that the fish were in that bowl. They'd been holding in there. You know, this bowl area of the lake. The lake is wide at the causeway end, and it narrows down and southwesterly blows down this narrow, deep channel into the bowl. And the narrow channel that enters the bowl is really deep, like 25 foot or so, maybe more. I've not plumbed it properly, but this narrow channel filters into the bowl, so you're getting, on a good blow, you're getting oxygenated water coming in there, but it's also sheltered because it's coming in through a narrow channel and then it sort of opens up. It's like its own microclimate in there. It's got everything that a carp would want. It's got reeds, lots of reeds. It's got deep water if you want it. Two big snaggy areas where the carp could sort of hang out and feel safe. And the rest of the lake just didn't have the same carp houses, you know, these snaggy bushes where the carp like to sit. But I went and set my gear up in a swim called Powers that faces up to the causeway bank. And I felt so sure that the carp wasn't there, I didn't put any rods out. I literally bivvied up, sharpened my hooks, got my hook baits ready for when I was moving into that swim. That yeah, I'm on the right path here. So I've taken the swim from Gary at about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. You know, the weather is a massive thing in carp fishing, and especially in May. You know, May is one of the best times to go carp fishing. But you get the wrong weather and the carp could be spawning, and we had the exact opposite of that. We had some really nice low pressure, good amount of wind blowing to that end, but again, like I say, it was sheltered, intermittent rain, a little bit of sunshine, just about as good as it could possibly be, you know, for carp fishing. We were running into the new moon, which is, you know, the full moon's probably my favourite, if I'm honest, but a new moon on weather like that, you know, is certainly something to take into account. So the right hand rod was put into the bait boat and placed with just like 16 tiger nuts in the bait boat. Most people, when they use a bait boat, can't help themselves to fill up the hoppers with loads of bait, but less is more. You know, you literally, it's so accurate, you don't need loads of bait, just enough to draw interest, you know, that extra scent in the water. So where I've caught the Oxleys previously is you've got a big snag bush. To the right of the snag bush, you've got sort of a hole in the trees, and the marginal shelf sort of slopes down towards like the edge of this carp house, and in 6 foot of water, just away from the snags, is this perfect gravel shelf. And having caught the Oxleys previously, it was always going to go back on that spot. You know, that's your first rod, number one. The second rod, I've took the marker rod round to the far bank where you're going to be taking the boat to, but rather than keep casting a lead over there and thrashing the swim to a death, I've walked around there and just had a few little plops around in the edge and found a nice gravel slope. It's about 4 to 5 foot deep, depending on where I stopped the float. It was sort of coming up quite steeply. And although the bottom was absolutely perfect there, it just felt slightly too far away from the carp houses. It wasn't screaming to me that it was definitely going to do one. The left-hand rod, however, was fished towards, there's a big green bush on the left-hand side of the far bank as you look at it from the bowl swim. I've taken the bait boat across to the left-hand side of this bush where it meets the reeds. And if you take it right up against, if I took it right up against the bushes, it was sort of 3.5, 4.5 foot deep. And I'm so close to the reeds that you can see above the surface. You've also got a few reeds that you can see on the echo sounder coming away. And the right hand rod is on gravel, the middle rod is on gravel. This rod, I can tell that it's not that absolute terra firma. It's in the right area, somewhere where I've seen carp sit, but it's not that textbook gravel spot that I've got so much confidence in. But what happened next is quite interesting. So I had the line tight to the bait boat and I was taking it forward on the controller, and obviously it builds up a certain amount of tension in the braid as it's sort of the line's going tighter and tighter and tighter. And then I would stop with the remote, and then the tension would slowly let the boat come back towards me. And I was watching the echo as it's sort of coming back towards me as the bottom changed. And at 6 foot depth of water, just back from where the reed stems sort of stopped on the bottom at sort of 4.5, so just a little way back from that, it did appear a little bit, on the echo sounder, the bottom appeared a little bit firmer. You know, on the right hand rod, on that gravel spot, you get this white crusty line on the screen that just, you know it's right. But this, just back from these reedy stems, I could just, where it meets the bush, there was just a glimmer where the white line sort of was more crisp on the echo sounder. When I've let the lever go, I sort of let it go a bit. Usually I would sort of pause before I do it, but as I saw it well on the screen that it looked like a good spot, I've let it go on the hopper door. And bear in mind, I'm using a 5 ounce flat pair, and there's 2 reasons for using a big 5 ounce lead like that. One is I've not got to cast it. 2, I'm fishing on quite steep slopes, so I don't want the lead to roll down. But mainly, the real thing is, if I ain't got to cast it and I ain't got to worry about disturbance, if a fish picks that off the bottom, they are in a whole world of trouble. So when I flick the hopper door open, the line's perhaps a little bit tighter than I would normally drop on the bait boat. And as the lead's descending through the water, I can really feel it pulling on the rod, pulling the rod round. It's like, because it's heavy lead and the line's tight, it's like, and it's just gone down with what I would call a clonk. Not a crack onto gravel, like that crisp, not like a but it was like a rib punch. Like if you hear a really good, if you watch boxing, then you get a really good body shot going. It just got a certain like, and it was one of them. I had a few people in my swim and it made me jump a bit. I was like, it was much, much better than I could have anticipated.
I'm in.
Oh, what a beautiful time of day to get a take. It was absolutely hammering down last night, hammering down all afternoon. We had a few liners sort of just as the light was turning at about 4 o'clock. It's about 4:30 now. Fishing braid, probably about 110, 120 yards out. Now bobbins jerking up and down at real aggressive sort of opening exchange, just get into the fish at the far bank. But I've got him away from the immediate danger. It's just my other lines that I've got to worry about now. Ooh. Really fighting this one. But it's no coincidence that this bite has come at first light. All of the bites that I've heard of speaking to people, I don't know how many bites there's been, like around 10 to 15, something like that. I think only one of them so far has come in the dark. All the bites have been coming at first light, which is good to know. You know, get your rods in position and just keep everything calm in the mornings. And this time of year, spring, it's not always the case, but quite often in spring, bite time is in the morning. I say not always, but a lot of the time. In the autumn, it can be at night. Just want to concentrate here. It's really close to my middle line. Oh no, it's done it. Fuck. How did that's fucking happen? Fuck. And that's going through the other one. Get in there. Get in there. It'll be intense, that lad. Oh. I just remembered I lifted the net up and sort of turned it onto its flank just to get a sight of it. And all these scales have just appeared, you know, which I was expecting a leathery flank. And as these scales have appeared, it's sort of, there's this moment of realisation of, that might be that free scale. That's not a 30 pounder, that's, in fact, it's far from a 30 pounder. That's free scale, which is the most desirable mirror in the lake, you know. We're walking out here like Conor McGregor. It actually. It actually fucking is. To catch Oxleys and then on your next, so 2 bites, and to catch the 2 most desirable fish, you know, is, you know, that's absolutely obscene. You know, the odds of that, you know, it's a low stock lake, so the odds aren't absolutely, they're not like 1,000,000 to 1. But to catch out of, say, 30, 40 fish, if that's what the stock is, it might even be as low as 25, but let's just call it 40. To catch the 2 biggest ones in your first 2 bites of the spring campaign, you just literally could not write that. That's not 50. Just over 49. That'll do though, lad. That will do. Well, have a look at that. You just could not write it. 2 weeks ago, we caught the Oxleys at 55 pounds on the new moon, and on the run up to the full moon this week, we've caught free scale at 49 pounds. Unbelievable. What a creature. So yeah, to catch to free scale, you know, that was the one that made me join, and to catch it on the second trip of our filming was just absolutely epic. We had a bit of a social after that. You know, Tom Stokes sat with me most of the day, and I'll be honest, we just ploughed a few cans and just celebrated. He'd caught Oxleys the week that I'd been away, so I'd caught it at 55, and then the following week he caught himself at 53 something. So we sat there, we had a few beers, we chewed the cud, and we just had a bit of a social. And I woke up on that second night in that swim about 1:30 in the morning. Needed a wee, felt a bit dehydrated from drinking a few beers, made myself a cup of tea. And not long after I drank this cup of tea, it was, I think, just about 2 o'clock in the morning, I've had a take on the right hand rod. So the first take has come on the left hand rod with free scale, fish towards the bush on that mega drop. And then this second take on the second evening has come from the same spot as I've caught the Oxleys. And because I was awake, I was on the rod fast, I got it away from the trees really quickly, really well, got a good 2 rod lengths of line onto the spool. And at that point, I'm confident. You know, I've done the hardest bit. I put my left-hand welly on, and my welly's got zips up the side, and the left-hand welly, the zip was undone. It's gone on really easy. And then as I'm fumbling, trying to get the right-hand one on, the zip was done up. I had a bit of a fumble. Suddenly the fish went on a bit of a run. The drag was tighter than I'd perhaps wanted it, and I got caught off guard. You know, most people wouldn't admit it, but yeah, I think, you know, I know that I could have done better. If it was really well hooked, it stayed on anyway, because it didn't go stupidly tight. But when you're fishing to woodwork, I did have the clutch pretty tight up, and I got caught with my hand on my welly as the fish pulled, was unable to give line, there's no stretch in the braid, and the hook pulled, lost the fish, you know. So it did take the shine a little bit off of free scale, but at the same time, I was still really happy with that result. So I'm going to move on to my third session now. So after losing that fish in the bowl, my 2 nights were up. I had to move out. Tom Stokes moved in behind me, and I went home for one night. So I've gone home, woke up in the morning, still buzzing to a caught free scale, and thinking, I know those fish, they're in that bowl. You know, I know they're there. They don't seem to be moving, there's no weed, there's no reason for them to leave that area of the lake. There's just these 2 lovely carp houses, and the wind is blowing that way. They were going to be there. And everyone who's fishing the lake knows this, you know, so everyone's going to be trying to get in that swim. And I know Tom's got a night left, so I drove back to the lake and I camped in another swim down the path, like from Tom, knowing that the following day that I'd get another 2 nights in on the fish. And on Tom's second night in the swim, he's caught a 17 or an 18, 19 pound common, like a small common. So it's confirmed that the fish are still in that swim. So I took the swim over about lunchtime. And at this point, because I've caught on 2 different spots out of there on those first 2 trips in the bowl, the right hand rod where I've caught Oxleys, the left hand spot where I've caught free scale, I just fished 2 rods on that first night. The left-hander again, which is quite significant, the left-hand spot, I got again, even though there's not a gravel spot and it's like patchy on the echo sounder. Again, I got like a ridiculous drop.
Fang's fucked. Huh? I said Fang's fucked.
That's good.
And it was lucky, you know, I'm not going to say I plumbed this spot meticulously, and it looked patchy on the echo sounder, so I was lucky to get this drop again. And on this first night of 2 in the swim, I've caught a 35 pound common. Now Scott wasn't with me on this session to capture me putting the rods out on this session, but luckily the couple of guys recorder were here filming with Tom, managed to capture a little bit of it on the bank and a little bit of it going back. We'll have a look at that. Decided to come back to Oxleys without Scotty. He's busy back at the studio editing our next film, and while we're in May, prime time, you know, you've got to make the most of it, make hay while the sun shines, as they say, and managed to get back in the bowl swim again, and the same spot where I caught 3 scale has produced this lovely 35 pound common.